nose! You're quite correct. It's not that it wasn't switched on. It's not that it wasn't switched on. It's that I hadn't fully plugged it in. It turns out that this headset, the plug on it goes in, and then you have to really give it an extra little push to get it in. And more than once recently, I've failed so to do. But today, here we all are, and hey, paisanos, we're having a knuckles time. And we're currently in the oily ocean zone. Now, getting covered in oil... Oh! Catch the UFO and put it in your pocket. Alright, I will. Hey, this one! Remember this one? We had a lot of fun with this one, didn't we? Is this the one that I massively had trouble with? Whoa, did you see that, like, half-built planet thing on the left? Look at that, whoa! It's not half-built, it's got a molten core! Cool. Alright, doing okay so far. By the way, check out Knuckles. Bright pink here. I'm so... by the way, over the last few days, I've kind of been characterized as a Pink Knuckles purist, simply because I was, I don't know, just keen to relate to people the fact that Knuckles originally was pink. I don't think he was supposed to be. I think he was supposed to be red, but he was pink. What? You're supposed to bounce off that? Well, Spanky, if you'd have been there at the hangout, you'd have heard me read out my essay about, well, among other things. It was about a few things, but it was also about the fact that Knuckles was originally pink, and here he is restored to his pure, true pinkness all the way through this game, with just enough red highlight to essentially, basically, people in both camps can think that they're seeing their version of Knuckles. Those of us who remember his pink form, now that I've told you he's pink, you can probably mainly see him as pink. I mean, look how pink he is. But in the 3D section, I would argue that he's definitely pink in the special stage, whereas here, you know, he's got red highlights. You could argue he's red. Standing next to that little fella there, and he probably looks quite... Will you do a flipping spin, please? I don't know, he still looks pink to me next to this guy, who is fully pink. Yeah, me too. Me too. Alright then, Spanky, don't worry, I will. And particularly if Infamous Neo is able to come, I already owe him a couple of bits of preview of my big Sonic script. La 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 la, he blue blue blah. So here we are in the oil ocean zone, which is a very bad place for an animal to be. Just ask Becky the duck, who sadly perished of oil when they were drilling for oil at Bayside High. Now, they were drilling for oil at Bayside High because they uncovered some oil, and a guy came in. This was a high school in the 90s, and it was in the news. And a guy came in, and he was sort of demonstrating that. Do you remember there was, because it was the first big wave of environmentalism stuff, and it was a lot of it was based on this incident, I think. The guy came to the school, and he actually did a presentation, not in front of the school board or like the owners of the school, like he did it in front of the kids. It was a bit weird, and his idea was he was going to show them that, you know, what their school could be like. You know, so, and he came from me, and he had a model and everything, and to be honest, the presentation went quite well. It was about, like, how everything was going to be really good. But the thing is, it backfired because the kids already knew the dangerous effects of oil on ducks. And so, what they did, there was this one student who was one of the more popular students, and he sort of actually kind of crashed the meet. It was honestly, it was like if this had happened now, there'd be like the sort of the phone videos of it would go up on Twitter, but at the time you had to sort of rely on word of mouth because there wasn't very good. Really big phones. Yeah, they didn't do video very well despite their size. But there was actually footage of it because the meeting was being filmed by a sort of a two cameras or thereabouts, and in front of a live audience. And there was a bit where this student, who was a popular student, he was very well liked, but he had, I hesitate to say fallen in love with the duck, but it was a bit like that. He'd really taken to this duck, and he stood up in front of everyone, and he actually showed the man from the oil company what for. It was, I mean, honestly, it was quite a thing to behold. What he did, which, like, obviously, you know, he probably wouldn't have done this if he'd known anyone was filming, because it was such a, you know, he could, like, you could probably go to prison like juvie for this in America, because this was in America. This was in the Palisades. What he did was he stood up and he, like, got. His point was that it can be damaging to have oil drilling in a school environment, which, to be honest, I agree with that. That seems fairly standard. I feel as if there would... presumably there were environmentalists. Well, not just environmentalists, but just like people, you know, parents and stuff were probably going like, oh, I don't know if you want to turn, us children's school into an oil field. I don't really know how it went down in the background, because you never... I mean, I've seen all of the reports about this, and you hardly ever see any of their parents in the whole... Like, in the whole thing, you hardly ever see any of their parents. You see this one's parents a couple of times, and then, like, they, when he went to college, they had a bit to say as well. But he got married, and there was a thing about that. But Las Vegas, he went up in front of the whole school, and he, like, basically got a pen, an ink pen. We used to have in the 90s, you know, they used to still use like ink pens at school, and he squirted it all over the man's shirt, and he was like, "Oh, it's an expensive shirt." And he's like, "Yeah, well, you're going to lose more than an expensive shirt if this goes ahead." And I mean, he stopped just short of, like, pulling out the corpse of this duck and, like, rubbing it on the guy's face. Like, that was how it was. You should have. No, Spanky, don't be silly. It was the news. You should have seen it though. He was very serious. Normally he was quite. You could tell just from his bearing that he was usually quite a fun kid. You know, he'd usually just get up to japes and scrapes and things like this. But on this occasion, it was a very special incident, and so he was very serious. And yeah, that's how it all went down. You should have. I mean, the guy was like, he was so defeated that not only did they not, and bear in mind that the headmaster stood up for this kid, because the headmaster, I mean, honestly, when it came down to it, the headmaster cared more about the kids than he did about money, or, like, you know, the school was going to get a huge injection of cash for this, and the headmaster was like, he was on the student side. He stood up to the guy and was like, I want this school to be a better place for the kids, not a better place for some, you know, oil company, even if we will get... Because let's face it, how much of it was the school actually going to be given, you know? And then, so, he, you know, the headmaster, honestly, himself, it was you should have seen this. It was on telly and everything. Headmaster stands up and is like, we don't want your kind around here, or something, I can't remember. And, like, the guy was so defeated by this that he basically fled. And then, I mean, I'll never forget the day, because of course, in those days, you know, something was on the news and everyone saw it on the news. You didn't see it like different. You didn't see it on, like, the way it is today on Twitter and stuff, where there's the news, but everyone's got their own take on it because they've all heard about it from different sources, and, like, they're all corrupt, and so, you know, such and such a paper's in this or that pocket, and such a TV program. In those days, you know, we had the BBC and stuff. It was quite impartial, so you would all, you know, you'd all come to school the next day and you'd have seen the same thing on the news or whatever, and, like, people at work would talk about the same things on the news, and of course that was open to abuse, because if it was a biased news corporation or whatever, then that would be, there'd be less chance of knowing what you'd seen that wasn't necessarily true. But the thing is, that's not how it worked in the UK in those days. Maybe in America it did, but when it wasn't, like, commercial TV, and there was only 2 commercial channels, and they, like, were next to the BBC, so they felt as if they should be impartial. But anyway, it was all pretty good, and so we all saw the same moment where the guy, like, just left, like, stormed out of the school angrily, or, like, defeated, or, you know, humiliated or whatever. And it was so epic, the takedown that this guy had experienced, that, like, you could see it. No one knew how to react, and they all just froze. Like, everyone in the room basically just froze. on the spot. And the words produced by Peter Engel came up. Now that was something to do with, I think it was like a corrupt, like the video might have been corrupt. Thinking back on it, actually, it might have been part of that as to why they all froze. But at the time, we all took it to mean that they were just so blown away by like how brave this kid and the headmaster were. And like, honestly, you guys should have been there. Same kid showed up a while later. He was in a band. Oh, and that just goes to show, you know, he had his 15. No. He had his 15 minutes of fame with the footage of that, and then like, just from that, that's presumably why his band Zack Attack was signed, and they got. I mean, I don't know if you remember, they got really far, and then it ended quite sadly because, do you know, they were on bands and they but before long they didn't have to be. You know what I mean? They were just doing their own concerts and stuff, and then and it was amazing how how their voices like didn't match them at all. They kind of seemed like, I don't know, like mature beyond their years. You know what I mean? They were teenagers, but they were singing like session singers in their 40s. It was honestly, pop music was weird in those days. We just accepted this sort of stuff. But yeah, it actually ended quite sadly. I see, as I remember. The lead singer, who was the guy, you know, the one with the duck, and I think the rest of them were like from the same school. You see them like in the background in the footage, but he was the main like guy, and he ended up. I mean, you don't want to. Yeah, I mean, you don't know how much credence you want to give to like the rumors and stuff. There's only really two sources for this. One is like the producers, like what is it? There was this guy called, I think his name was like Bob Fate or something, who was their producer or their manager or whatever. But they got another manager later on, and her version of the story is different to this, and she claims that this didn't happen. But like, the only other source that we have is this Casey Kasem documentary that he did, which was really, it was interesting because, I mean, you know, rest in peace, obviously. Like, but this was when he was at the top of his game, journalistically speaking. This was post Shaggy. And he'd done all of that because this is why he was doing the documentary, because, you know, in his Shaggy days, obviously he'd had a hit with Oh Carolina, and he'd been able to be on, you know, he'd done his own musical stuff, and then Abby, for some reason Abby's put her face behind her computer like she's trying to hide from me. But yeah, he did a documentary on the band, and that's like kind of the main source that we have for a lot of this information. So you don't know how accurate any of it is, but apparently, because this is a bit, I mean, this is a bit, I hardly want to say this because it's a bit tabloidy, but like, apparently he had an affair with his it was this new producer who came in called Mindy, and he actually, just before the band split up, he was going to premiere this song. He mentioned it in an interview. It was going to be called, you know, Mindy Mindy, and that's how people knew that. I think that was the biggest clue that like everybody had. And then, sure enough, you know, the ages after the Mindy Mindy thing, which was that came out in an interview. Was it Parky? I don't think it was. Who was it? I can't remember. But yeah, it might have been to do with the documentary. It was certainly in the documentary. I can't remember if it was like the interview was with Casey Kasem. I don't think it was, but it was an MTV thing. Anyway, don't worry about it. So anyway, what was I talking about? What am I talking about this for? Oh yeah, because basically oil is really bad for wildlife, and it's just. There was a bit of controversy at the end of it all anyway, because it turns out, because you know how you won't believe what this random, you know, what this teenager did in this candid moment or whatever. But people did start to wonder, well, why were the cameras there? You know, why were they filming this? And yeah, alright, it was the oil company and so on, but the big presentation, but like, you know, why were they filming this? Well, it turns out I mean, I don't know how much of this to believe, because this, I mean, you know, anyone can edit Wikipedia and so on, but like, this kid, this wasn't his first time round the block. This kid, they reckon that he had some kind of, I don't know if he had like someone in his family worked for the oil company or something like this, but it turns out that he had this company making this oil. It was a sort of a cream, but it had, you know, obviously it was like an oil-based cream for, like, spots. It was a spot cream. And people reckon that this whole thing was, like, as a way of rebuilding, you know, because he went bankrupt or something. There was something was up with this cream. All it was he was, you know, one of the entrepreneur kids. And he according to him, anyway, the story behind it, according to him, was it was like there was, you know, just like in science class at school, there was a, you know, he was making something, and like they just happened to mix one thing with one thing, and they made this cream, and it just was amazing for spots. They called it Zitoff. I mean, do you remember Zitoff? Because it used to be, they used to sell it. I think it used to be get it in the back of the comics. You know the comic with the guy on the beach and the big bully kicks him and stuff. They did one of those for it, and there we go. And yeah, so this Zit Cream stuff did really well. I mean, I know some of you are younger, so you don't remember all of the stuff in the 90s, like, you know, because we're doing Sonic Mania, you know, might as well fill you in on some of the, just like the world we lived in at the time. And the thing is, though, all these, like, you know, we all bought this cream. And not me, I was only 11 at the time, but, like, I knew people whose older brothers bought it and stuff like this. And one day, right, long story short, they all came to school and everyone had, like, purple patches on their face. And it turns out to be, you know, like the Ratner's rings and stuff, where the gold would turn people's skin green. It was basically that. So people were turning, like, maroon. And it was the weirdest thing. But they came up with the best way around it. Do you know how, like, this was at the time when stuff like Red Nose Day was popular and stuff. We'd all do, like, a thing where everyone would, you know, dress up a certain way or whatever. And we all, like, just painted our faces red for a day at school, like, in solidarity with the people who'd used it. Honestly. And this is the same kid. Like, is it a coincidence that a few years later, like, the Zidoff fortune presumably disappeared? And, like, oh, what a surprise that the same kid. I mean, his dad sold computers. You know, this is someone who was, like, a known. You could research it if you had these days. If you had the internet, and they didn't in those days. So we had, like, I mean, you know, ironically, his dad sold computers, and that helped, like, you know, their company would. I think they got involved in AOL in the end or something because they were very wealthy. But you know, he was always doing all these schemes, and you could find this out now. You know, now on Wikipedia. There's this woman, April Richardson, who's made a whole podcast. It went on for like 80-something episodes just about this kid. Honestly, I've listened to every episode. He's a fascinating kid, this kid's life. He was on Fallon, honestly. But, yeah, oil. Not good for animals. They invented, like, this spaghetti sauce once. Ah! What's Abby doing? Abby's going really in close. She's got a very serious face on.
I want a divorce.
Oh, dear. She doesn't mean it. She's referring to this, when we... one of the things that we did, like... Because, you know, we knew each other when we were kids. One of the things they used to do in those days, it was, like... do you remember it, Abby? It was like this weird wedding class they used to do, and you used to, like, pretend to be married, and it was really weird that they would make you do that, because, you know, there was that one kid who was like, he'd been perving on this girl for ages, and he kind of arranged to be her, like, he tried to be her husband, but that didn't work out, and he ended up being their kid. Because, you know, the whole thing was like a mock family. Oh, it was weird. Honestly, I wish you guys could have been there in the 90s. Things were a bit weird. I don't know. Not really been paying attention, but to be honest, I've been doing okay. Do you remember that time that we did an all-rap version of Sleeping Beauty? At school. That was really weird, right? Ow, ow, ow. No, it wasn't. It was Snow White. It was Snow White and the Seven Dorks. Do you remember that? And we worked on the script for it for absolutely ages, but then, like, people started getting it wrong, so we had to ad-lib the whole thing. Remember? Do you remember when that guy invented a robot? Get off! Dee 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 dee.
I said I'd watch through it all with you once, so I didn't want to relive it again.
Oh, it's happening again one day. I mean, come on. That's not the last time ever that we watched that, is it? Really, think about it. I mean, that was the plan, and it's what I currently think now. But, like, let's face it. That's not going away. I bought all of those box sets that day. Guys, this is now... I'm now going to tell you a true story. And you're going to like... Do you think I could have Dave as a white noise generator? He's wonderful to fall asleep to. Yeah.
One of your other friends just said that.
What, you?
Me and Jim.
Oh, Jim. What did he say?
No, he said you like falling asleep to your videos.
All right. Well, anyway.
It was a compliment.
I know.
But even he thought it was a bit weird. He just found you very confusing.
This is now true, right? This is the truth. This is the truth. I forgot what it was. It was going to be good, whatever it was. What were we talking about? What was it? It was a good little story. Oh, yeah. The day I bought all of Saved by the Bell, right? So, I bought all of Saved by the Bell. This is, well, not all of it. Not the new class, come on. But all the rest of it. And I bought it on DVD, and I had it delivered to Abby's shop, because they have more reliable posts than we do here. This is true, right? Honestly. No.
I know the story.
This is honestly true, right? Abby, confirm.
This is true.
So we had the DVDs, which consisted of 2 sizable DVD box sets of Saved by the Bell, to Abby's shop. That, usually, here's what normally happens. The postman or lady will show up at post time, which is... What time would you usually say is post time normally when stuff arrives? Varies.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's always during the day. It's always when they're there. And if it isn't, then, they just come back another time, I guess, because we've never found out about it. But on this occasion, Abby comes to the shop in the morning and finds 2 parcels on the floor, just on the pavement outside her shop. Not round the back, not the tradesman's entrance. There isn't one. It's on the street, the main street, where people come and go, and it's a road as well. There's cars, right? On the street are 2 box sets of Saved by the Bell. They have been opened, and the DVDs are poking out. So here's what's happened. We, extrapolate everything you like from this, but this is what they realised must have happened. Number 1, so the postman just goes, "Oh, I've arrived. It's before opening hours. I'm just going to put these parcels on a public street. Just a public... Doesn't know what they are. I'm going to put these parcels on a public street with the name of a citizen on them. Just a person's name and address. I'm going to put these parcels, which could be stock for this shop or whatever, I'm going to put them on the road." And he does. A public pavement. People walking back and forth. Upon which, someone passing, one of these people going past, spots that there is this parcel on the floor. 2 parcels on the floor. What does he do? He goes, "I'm going to steal this." Oh no, the one I have no idea how to do, and I've got 1 life. He sees this parcel on the floor.
Easy. Just jump in it.
It's not easy. In a minute, it sort of jumps up and does a thing. Oh, I'm stuck in the oil anyway. That's the thing. I don't know what you're supposed to do about that. someone sees these two parcels, these two Amazon parcels, abandoned on the floor. And what does he do? He says to himself, Amazon parcels? That could be something good that I might sell down at the pub for money. So he opens them. He sees that they are box sets of Saved by the Bell. He goes, you can have that. And he leaves them there on the street with them poking out. And that is the story of how a thing that was precious to me was saved, not by the bell, but by how worthless it was. And how only I in the whole world and April Richardson think it's a good thing to have on DVD. Shout out to AP. And with that,
I think you need to send her that story.
I wonder if I already have. Dibby-doo-doo-doo-doo. Dibby-dee-dee-da-doo. And with that, I bid you a good night. Oh, they stay collected even after you get a game over. Now, Dave, it's a bit late. I'll be off to bed now. Maybe you should be too. You're absolutely right, Ender Eagle. And away we go. Bye-bye, everybody. What a lot of fun we had. What a lot of fun we had together. What a lot of fun we had together. What a lot of fun we had.